Hi everybody, I'm Eric Duran, the head naturalist for the Nature Discovery Center, and this is going to be our first video for the month for Palooza. And we're going to be, oh, stuff's blowing away. We're going to be doing some educational videos about plants this month. I think we've got 4 coming up on our YouTube channel. Before we do some of the other videos though, I want to make sure that you guys understand what plants are and how they work. I think you already know that, but a little review never hurts, right? So we are standing here in our herb garden, or right in front of our herb garden, and this I thought would be a good place to have a look at some plant basics. And also, of course, you can look behind us and you can see a lot of plants in the, I think this is the western woodland section of the park, but that area over there is called Thrush Hollow. Great place to go bird watching, full of trees, a little forested area. We're going to be moving over there into that part of the park in a later video when we talk about the basics of tree biology, but I wanted to talk to you today about basic plant biology. So let's step up to the garden and have a look, everybody. Now, when we start talking about plants, I want to make sure that you know what the basic plant parts are, and I'm sure that you do, but let's pull up a weed that's growing in the garden so we can have a look at it. There's got to be a weed somewhere over here that we can pull up. Oh, excellent. Look everyone. When we have Boy Scouts over here doing some Boy Scout badges, one of the things that we have to do is plant things in the garden, and the boys go a little crazy with the bean plants. So we have a bean plant right here, and we're gonna pull up this plant because this really, I can't let this grow right here. We've got other things coming in. You know, we don't want it to crowd out the fennel. So the first thing that we need to know about plants is plants are living things. They're organisms. So they do all the things that other living things like plants and fungi and bacteria do. Plants basically need to eat. There's other words you learn in biology class, but plants need to eat. Plants reproduce, they have babies, right? Plants grow. Plants respond to stimulus too. Now, look at this. Hey, the plant's not really responding to a stimulus right now. It doesn't respond to stimulus in the same way that an animal would. If there was a turtle here and I poked it, it would move away, right? Or it would move its head. But it does respond to some stimulus, right? Like, what if this area all of a sudden became shaded out and the sun was over there? The plant would start growing towards the sunshine. If something negative were happening over here to the plant, it would start to grow in the other direction. Or if something positive started happening nearby in the other location, it would start to grow towards that. So it actually can respond to stimulus the same way other living things do. Now there's other aspects of being a living thing, but those are some of the important ones. They respond to stimuli, they grow. Of course, they start off small and they grow much bigger. They reproduce, they have babies, and they metabolize. Basically, they take stuff outside of their body, they make it a part of their body so that they can grow and reproduce. So they eat, basically. So they're living things that do a lot of the same things that other living things do. But there is something special about them versus, say, animals or fungi. They do something animals and fungi can't do, and that is they make their own food inside of their body. Does anyone know what that process is called, where they take the energy from the sun and they take nutrients from the soil, they take molecules from the air, they take water, and using all of those things, using the energy from the sun, they take those ingredients, they combine them, boom, and they create sugars inside of their body. They basically create food for themselves. And you get some of those sugars when you eat plants, of course. What is that process called of using the energy from the sun, combining those different molecules, and creating their own food? Do you know what that's called? Of course you do. It's photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is happening in the green parts of the plant. Now, one of the chemicals in the plant that is allowing that to happen is called chlorophyll. And you can see some chlorophyll on the plant, from the plant on this piece of paper right here. This is something you can walk outside and do right now. Now this green isn't just chlorophyll, this is probably a mix of different chemicals that are in this plant, but one of the major things you're seeing right here, what causes the plants to be green, is chlorophyll. And this chemical inside the plant is what's helping perform the action of photosynthesis. Now that mostly happens up here in the leaves, but you can see with a lot of these other plants, the stems are green too. So there is some photosynthesis also happening in the stems a lot of times, of some plants. Some plants, it really only happens in the leaves. So let's start from the top of the plant and work our way down. We're about to pull this plant out, again, because we can't have beans growing in this section. I don't want it to cover our other plants. But here, this thing keeps blowing away. I'm gonna put that under my foot. So we have the leaves. The leaves are the part of the plant that basically does the photosynthesis for the plant. So it creates food. The leaves also are the part of the plant that breathes, or it's one of the parts of the plants that breathes. We're gonna get into that in a second, but it basically breathes in carbon dioxide, and strangely enough, a lot of people don't know that there are actually two different breathing processes happening in plants. So plants actually need to breathe in oxygen, most plants do, and they need to breathe in carbon dioxide. But they do create way too much, or they create oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis and some of the other things that are happening inside. So of course, one of the things that's also happening on the leaves is they're breathing out oxygen, and they're breathing out breathable oxygen, O2. Two oxygen molecules joined together, two oxygen atoms joined together to create the O2 molecule. And that's the kind of oxygen we breathe, right? So they're actually helping out animals on this planet that breathe oxygen by releasing oxygen out into the atmosphere. Now, actually, most of our breathable oxygen does not come from land plants. It actually comes from phytoplankton in the water, but that's a whole different story. We can talk about that some other time. Anyways, it's breathing, it's letting out extra oxygen, it's going through photosynthesis in the leaves, and then after it creates those sugars in the leaves, it needs to pass it down to the rest of the plant. And that's one of the things that the stem does. So we go from the leaves to the stem. Now the stem stores some of those sugars, but it also stores excess water, and it passes sugars down from the leaves to the roots as well. So we have our leaves, we have our stem, which passes the materials back and forth through the plant, up and down, and it also stores extra materials for later. Now I'm going to pull this out. There we go. And of course, at the bottom of the plant, you have the roots. And the roots are going to look different on different plants, the same way that the stems and the leaves are going to look different on different plants. The roots are underground most of the time. They keep the plant anchored in place. That's one of their purposes. Another purpose of the roots is that they soak up water, so they drink for the plant. Another thing that they're doing is they're taking up nutrients from the soil and passing it up the stem. They're storing some of those nutrients, and then they're passing some of those nutrients up to the leaves to use for photosynthesis. So we have the leaves, the stem, and the roots right here. Another thing that I think a lot of people don't know, an ant is coming after me, everybody. I almost freaked out. Thankfully it's a carpenter ant, and they're not terribly aggressive. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we have the leaves, the stem, and the roots. Another thing that's happening in the roots underground is that the roots are actually breathing in a little bit of oxygen. So this is one of the parts of the plant that needs to breathe in a little bit of oxygen. We usually think of plants as breathing in carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen, but they actually do need a little oxygen to stay healthy as well. So that's one of the reasons why when you plant plants, what you don't want to do is put it in the ground and then smash the dirt on top of it. And you don't want people walking over the ground where the plants are, or driving cars back and forth over the ground near the edges of trees and other plants, is because when the ground gets too compacted, oxygen can't make it down through little animal tunnels or through the particles of the soil and make it down to the roots, because the roots do need to breathe a little bit. Okay, so we have our leaves, we have our stem, and we have our roots. There are obviously other parts of the plant, and you can see it over here on some of these plants. Plants also make flowers. We're going to get more into the purpose of flowers and how flowers work later on, but basically flowers are there to make seeds, and seeds are baby plants, right? Those seeds are how the plant reproduces. The flowers are there to create seeds, and we're going to go through all the processes of pollination and who pollinates and how they do that in a later video. But you also get flowers, fruits, and seeds on plants as well, and that all has to do with reproduction, with creating new plants for the future, correct? Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys visited me today. Those were some plant basics. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at eduran@naturediscoverycenter.org. My email address is on the website, naturediscoverycenter.org. Or you can also call me. My name is Eric Duran. I'm the head naturalist, and leave a message and I'll get back with you if you have any questions about plants. So have fun out there, guys, and have a nice month enjoying plants. Bye, everyone.